Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon. Welcome to another time here, another time at the book club. Uh, we're still studying a book, Business is Personal by Bethany Frankel. That's what we've been studying since October last year. We're gonna be done with it next month here in June. Today we're gonna go to 12th chapter out of 13 chapters in the book. So this is gonna be the penultimate chapter in the book. We're gonna be reading chapter 12, talking about risk and reward, right? That's what we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to bring up my slides and we're going to go ahead with it. All right, great. I'm sure you can see my slide. That's a book. That's our next book, The Good Life. Next book is going to be The Good Life. It's lessons from world's longest scientific study of happiness, right? So I got my copy here. Right? It says create a more meaningful and satisfying life, the good life. Creating a more meaningful and satisfying life. That's what we're going to devote starting from July. First Sunday in July, be our next book. And I've been doing some sneak peek on that before we go into our main talk. Today we will look at it says look, we try to answer the question, right, which is kind of a summary of the book. What makes a life fulfilling and meaningful is a question. I said meaningful should be, let me correct that. It's meaningful, right? What makes a life fulfilling and meaningful? And the simple answer is relationships, right? Relationship is what makes a life fulfilling and meaningful. And you need a meaningful and fulfilling life is what a good life is all about, like we defined last week, and pretty much that's tied to relationships. I had a book titled Relationship Life's Bottom Line, and I've not been able to lay my hands back on that book. And I do have one on relationship at my home in Houston. But I'm not able to lay hands on it. So I've ordered a new one, another book altogether to help me as I will go into the book and talk about relationships. The stronger our relationships are, the more likely we have to live a happy, satisfied, and overall healthy lives, right? The meaning of our lives the essence of our life is not found within ourselves, right? It's found outside of ourselves. Everything that takes place on the inside of our organism, on the inside of our being, is all to the intent and extent to be able to relate with others, to be able to relate with the world around us. We're not created just to live within ourselves. Yes, introverts spend a whole lot more time living within themselves, but introversion is not 100% within yourself. If you do that, you're going to go into depression, right? All the energy you gain within yourself is for the purpose of engaging, right? Engaging with people. And to the extent to which that engagement is seamless is the extent to which your life has its essence, which is it becomes fulfilling and meaningful, right? So the relationships are important, right? And that comes out from a study, Harvard study here that reveals that the strength of our connections can predict the health of both our bodies, our brain, and our being, right? Because that's why we're here. We're here to make impact, right? Impact. We're here to make impact. Everything that takes place on the inside of us is the end that will make impact, right? So we'll do more of that as we go into the book. Let's get back to the book we're on right now. All right. So it's chapter 12, and we'll say that we're talking about it's worth taking risk because it's a people if you take risk, if you create a market, you'll have people that will come for it. That's pretty much summary of what Bethany is talking about in the whole book. But life itself, right, is a risk. If you don't take risk, you will not go far in life. I can tell you that. I'm having to build a poultry right now, and you don't want to know how much I've already put into that. I'm not building it in a normal land. The land I have is not a flat ground, and in some places that the slope is steep, So we even thought we had finished, we're ready to do the ground slab, only to find out that the end part, is still not plumb, and it's critical because we need to drain, we need to drain to that part. So we're having to, raise that part up and get a plumb right, but it's a risk. It's a risk. I'm looking at a reward in the future, but to get to the future that I see, I have to take the risks today, right? The reward is in the future. The risk is in the present, right? You have to take the risks today to get that reward. Nothing goes for nothing in life. There's a price to pay for what you want, right? That price is the risk you take, right? To get there, right? You see the end from the beginning. You see what it is that I'm targeting. And you ask yourself if it's worth it. If you feel it's worth it, then you take the risk to get there, right? It's not easy. Nothing in life is easy. Life was not meant to be easy. If you want the price, then you have to pay the price. If you want the reward, then you have to pay the price, for the reward you're looking for, right? However, taking risks, you don't just jump into the fire, right? You have to be strategic about your risk. It's not, nothing goes for nothing. I give the story of David. David did not take the risk of fighting Goliath for nothing. First thing he said is, what will be given to the man, the person that kills this man? And he saw the price, he liked the price, and he went to take the risk, right? So don't just jump into taking risk for the sake of taking risk. The only mad people do that. Only people with mental sickness do that, right? You only take risk because there is a reward that you believe is worth the risk you are taking, right? So you have to be strategic about your risk, right? And even though you're following your heart and your passion, you need to carry your head along, right? You're following your heart, your passion, don't leave your head behind, right? So you have to set up yourself for success. That means you do the best you can today with the information you have, right? So it's not just a risk, it's an educated risk, right? Something you've done your risk assessment, you put your safeguards in place, you put your protections in place, and so you've done your due diligence, as it were. That's the key word, right? Even though we talk about jumping and finding your wings on the way down, you don't just do that until you have counted the cost and you have done your due diligence with all that you know today, right? Remember, we talk about the SWOT, the strength, the weakness, the opportunities, and the threats. You know what your strength is, what your weakness is, what are the opportunities you're trying to harness, and what are the threats that might, almost like prevent you or be fighting against you in trying to harness the opportunity that you are targeting. You need to know all of that and know how to manage it. You have to be to the best of your knowledge or to the best of your ability above that, right? There are things you will not be able to control. There are things that will be outside you, like your threats are outside you, but you want to be able to have a safety net, right? You want to have what we call safeguards, things that you can use to keep yourself from danger if those threats occur, So, but the more risk you take, the more muscles you accumulate, the better the person you are, right? You see, I'm free doing this now. It almost feels like natural that I can do this book club and it's flowing, it's fluent. It wasn't always like this. When we started this more than 2 years ago, I was still trying to find my footing. I'm asking myself, how would you do it? I had a lot of people I'd shared, different chapters with and all of that. And even when I began to do it alone, I was always questioning in my mind, how to do it. We have good times when I have people here, especially and we have engagement. Those are probably the best times, but then I can't guarantee that all the time. So I'm here alone, right? But you see, but I'm fluent in doing it. I'm doing this almost like carefree, but I wasn't born this way. I wasn't born this way. This came as a result of doing it over and over again. Like we gotta say, repetition is the secret to mastery. But I got this level of mastery because I do this Sunday in, Sunday out. So it's become a part of me. It's become a second nature, right? I took the risk, right? But the reward from the risk is muscles that are built in this direction, in this wise. I've become a better person for the risk I took, right? I took a risk that maybe nobody will like what I do, and all of that stuff, But today, guess what? I have more than 1,700 videos out there on YouTube, and I know people tell me, what they get from it, right? Not everybody presses that like button, but I get the feedbacks, so I'm proud of what I'm doing, but I didn't get here in one day, So Berkeley tells us about some suggestions as to ways to get ready, if you're going to take a risk, if you're going to jump, fly, and soar, tells us some of the things she does. So let's just run through them. Number one, she says to test the waters, right? When you're taking a risk, don't put everything in there, right? We would say don't invest into the market what will take you out of the market if you lose it, right? Invest what you can risk, what your heart can handle, right? So when we were talking about to brokers, they will talk about different risk class, whether you are the conservative, you are the risky one, all of that, and, we're all different, right? Where you fall within your risk bracket is tied to your personality. It's also tied to how many years you have, in the market, right? If it's someone like me that's very close to retiring, I'm not going to be investing like someone that just started employment, right? I just have barely 4 or 5 years, 4 years, less than 5 years to go if I stay till the end. I'm not going to put it on my eggs in one basket, right? I need to have a safety net, right? I'm not, even though generally I can bear risk, but I need to always remember how many years I have in full-time employment, as I do things, but you need to know where you stand, and that will determine how much you can test the waters. Typically would say, if you want to check how deep the river is, don't put your 2 legs, right? Because if you put your 2 legs once, you're gonna fall there. You're gonna lose your ground. You're gonna lose your balance, right? If you're gonna test how deep water is, put 1 foot first of all to see how deep it is. If that foot finds the floor, then you can bring the second one along with you. But test the waters. Don't be too carried away by what the analysts tell you. I mean, everyone is going to analyze the market for you, especially if they're going to get something from it. They're going to tell you how nice it is. Oh, in 5 years, you'll be this. Oh, in 1 year, you'll be this. Enter. But also don't forget also that past success does not guarantee today's success, right? You have to test it yourself. Maybe they're true. Someone made so much money from it, but some years ago, last week or whatever. Don't be carried away by that, because yesterday's success is no guarantee for today's success or today's result. All right. So you have tested water, in my workplace, especially when I worked out in California, and we still do that. But in California, it was a land project, and we have a big project we want to do. We first of all pilot test it. Like we'll take a small chunk of it and test it out. Then we'll do it and use that feedback to finally tweak the big project before we commission the big project. We don't just go after the big project. We'll do a pilot test, right? So we can see, because again, no matter how much you plan, right, your plan will not stay the same when it hits the market, when it hits the road. Because each time we plan assuming a perfect condition, but reality is not perfect. When you get there, there'll be some things that your plans probably have not taken care of. No matter how good your plan is, you have to make adjustment to your plan to fit reality, so that's why you test the water, so that's important as you take risks. Don't just jump all there. Test and see how it works for you, right? Think about the worst case scenario, how bad can it really get? And that's funny, when I was in depression, I had all of that, think about and that's not easy thinking about that when you're already in depression. But it's true. It's just that probably we need more explanation to people when we talk about worst case scenario. The reality is that no matter where you find yourself, and that's why depression doesn't make sense. We always think of the worst, and when we're looking at how bad things can get out of control, the devil has a way of magnifying it, right? And that's just life also. Whatsoever you focus on will expand. Whatever you focus on will magnify. If you focus on the evil will magnify in your eyes, right? Doesn't mean that that's what will happen in reality, but because you're only using your imagination will expand it, right? So don't be a prisoner of your imagination. Don't focus on bad results. Learn from them, but don't let it be your focus, right? Look at how bad things are, enough to learn from it. And once you have learned from it, don't move away. Use the lessons learned and stop thinking about it, because what you think about, you magnify and you bring into reality, right? So yes, we'll learn. How bad can it get? And I keep on looking at this also as I invest into my farm, because I'm in investing mode right now. I'm really not making money from it, and I'm asking myself, how much more can I invest in this thing, right? How much more can I invest in this, and how much more is it going to take me to get to a place when I start making returns on it? Where am I going to get that money from? Is that money going to destabilize me? Will it disturb my family finance? Will it affect my being able to pay my children's school fees? Will it change my financial status, adversely? So I have to continuously think about that and think about the money I'm moving, cash flow also, right? So it's a continuous thing I look at, but I don't stay there. I look at it, learn from it, make a decision, move on, right? But you need to consider how bad it can get, because then you ask yourself, am I willing to take this risk? Yes or no, right? So you also need to create plan B, right? Well, when you're taking a risk, so this is a yes and a no for me. When I go into it, I'm going into it having done my plan. I'm committed, right? So when I'm doing a plan B, C, D, E, you would need to ask a question, how committed I am to it. But so there are two different ways of looking at this. One is to, as part of your plan, you have backups. And we do this also, I'm an engineer. So we will talk about how do we call that? There is a word for it, but we do plan contingencies, right? Contingencies, right? If this happens, this is what I'll do. If that happens, this is what I'll do. Yeah. So when you go into a new field, you're taking risk. You need to have your contingencies in place, right? It won't necessarily be a different plan, but it's a contingency. How you plan to react if different scenarios present themselves. But you have to be careful in doing plan B and all of that you don't lose your commitment, right? Because if you're going after a plan and you're already thinking about another plan, then you're probably not committed to this, right? And that will affect you, right? So whatever we do, we need to believe in it and pursue it, right? But as part of our scenario planning, we can always have what we might call contingency plans, So Bethany says, as you create what might go wrong, use those pain points to create a backup plan, So it's what we call contingency in the engineering, but it's also a backup plan. But it's not as if you are not, but it must not be such that it doesn't take you away from being committed, right? So let it be that if it fails, it's not failing because of lack of commitment, but it's failing because of the environment or things that are outside your control, right? That's critical, right? So Bethany says, own mistakes and learn from them. And that's important. If things go wrong, don't blame someone else. Own up to it. If you are the ones making the call, and learn from it. It's not as much as what went wrong. It's as much as what you learned from it, right? We'll make several mistakes, right? This year's the cheapest labor we're getting. Last 2 years, we've gotten labor that's more expensive than we're doing today. So we've learned, we're doing better, right? We still have a lot of things that we did wrong that we need to learn from, and we're still working at it. But we don't blame anybody for whatever goes wrong. I take the responsibility. It's my company. I'm a CEO, right? I'm a chairman, right? So I take the full responsibility for everything that happens in my company. You know, I don't blame anybody. You know, we had this incident where the bricklayer, you know, said the floor was plumb, but it wasn't. Right? Yeah. So if we got our original bricklayer who plumbed it and saw that it wasn't plumb. There's no place to blame anybody. I take full responsibility for that. It's about even being grateful that we found out, because if we had done the casting, it would have been a waste of money, it would have been a disaster, it would have been messy, you know. So it was good we found it, and we're spending the money to do it right. So take responsibilities and learn. The learning is far more important than the mistake, because then you can do things better in the future. You've paid for your education. Right? That's important. All right. So successful risk is knowing what is worth risking and where you can make mistakes and where you can't, you know. So yeah, so you need to know the things you can risk, the things you can't. You know, there's some things you don't want to risk, right? I'm not gonna risk my children's education, right? The first thing that's going to stop is this whole business. If it ever competes with my children's education or well-being, if it ever competes with my wife, I'm going to shut it down. Right? Those are priorities in my life. Right? So you need to set boundaries for yourself, even as you take risk, you know, so that you don't lose the important things in your life. You know, you need to set boundaries for yourself. Right? That's important. So be your genuine self. Don't edit yourself. Just be you. You know, as you take risks, create new markets, be yourself. You know, and I love it. I'm learning through all of this. You know, today I'm able to chaperone meetings coming from this. So I'm building this by doing this book club, but I'm able to apply it in every other area of my life. It affects the way I talk. It affects the way I relate. It affects the way I participate in meetings. It affects the way I chaperone meetings or facilitate meetings, because it's the same self, right? So that's important. Risk is knowing your value and expecting to get it. Yeah, you know what you want, and you're not going to get anything less, right? From life as a whole, you know. So she ends with this: how to find balance while taking risk. So as you take risk in your life, she's saying these are 4 things that would help you in gaining balance, right? So she says, take risks, but always prepare for them. So like I said some Sundays ago, you know, preparation is the strength, the power of my life. I am who I am by preparation. If it falls in line with who I am, right? I need to prepare to feel comfortable. So everything I do, it's a preparation for my tomorrow. The time I spend reading, the time I spend doing this on its own is a preparation for something that's coming in my future, right? Because there'll be more things I need to do, you know, that I can do freely like this. I don't have to look at a book, you know, and I'm going to be in front of audience, right? And I need to do it fluently, right? So there's a practice section for me for a bigger thing in my future, right? But when I'm going to take a risk, then I need to prepare. I need to know the things to prepare the knowledge to gain, and get the facts of the matter, who to talk to, get a mentor, get someone that has a strength in the areas of my weakness to cover for my weakness, So second thing she says is that you need to accept the responsibility for the results of your action, whether it's good or bad. And it kind of tallies with what my mentor, Jim Rohn, would say. He says, in the time of harvest, you need to accept your harvest, whether it's small or big. If it's big, pat yourself on the back, take responsibility for it. You have done well, right? Take the lessons learned, take the best practice and do it again. If your harvest is small, then, wow, accept it also. Means that whatever you did, you didn't do it right. Either you got the wrong information or you applied the information wrongly. But accept it. Don't make excuses. It's not the devil. It's not the village people, right? It's not anyone else but you, right? There's something you did not do right. Find that thing, and make the right adjustment, right? 3, she says, be accountable to yourself and to others who are affected by your decisions. So if it negatively affects them, apologize, right? If it positively affects them, well, pat yourself on the back. You've done something well, but still be humble, right, about it, right? And number 4, it says, don't give up. Failure may not be an option, but it's reality. Sometimes things don't work. Things don't work, right? We're having a discussion in my family yesterday, and something that is not working, it's not been working, right? We took responsibility for it. It is life. We're not going to die because of that, right? We cannot change the past. We can only learn from it and do better today and in the future, right? So that's important, right? You don't have to go into depression just because something didn't work. Learn from it and make your today and your tomorrow better. Make your today and your tomorrow be the reward for what happened yesterday, right? Anyways, that's where I stopped for today. That's the end of chapter 12.